We'd like to begin this podcast by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Whadjuk Noongar people, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Welcome back again. It's episode 25 of Talking Couch Potatoes. Hi Mel, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well.
That's good.
For a young bloke.
Yep.
Do you know it's our anniversary?
Yes.
Not our anniversary, but it's our anniversary.
The podcast, I know.
The podcast.
Yeah,
Guess how old we are?
Pretty exciting. A year.
We're a year old. So
That's
we've
great.
been doing this thing for a whole year.
Yep.
So happy anniversary to us.
Feels like forever.
Wouldn't it be? Thanks. Thanks, Mel. That's lovely. Wouldn't it be a great anniversary present if we got a ridiculous number of signatures for the petition?
Absolutely.
Wouldn't that be great?
It would be very, very good.
So just to mention the petition, we've finished the online version, but we do have the paper version still
That's
going
right.
until
the second week of October. We'll actually be tabling it on Tuesday the 15th of October. We are really hopeful of 25,000 signatures.
That'd be awesome.
Yep.
So if you see people walking around, what is happening petition-wise? What's coming up?
We're going to be at the Stirling Square Markets in Guildford on Sunday the 15th.
That's in 2 days' time?
That's right.
Yep.
So let's hope the weather is beautiful. And GAWA are usually there also. So Houndy's looking for their forever home. So it's a really good market to get down to.
It's a perfect combination.
Absolutely.
Go and save the hounds and maybe personally meet a hound and take them home and save them personally.
Absolutely. Or they'll save you. It's always
That's
a
what
question.
happened. Yeah, no, that's exactly what happened to me. And they're there from 8 a.m. till 2 p.m.
That's right. And it's always a fun market. Nice people. Yeah.
So you could go anyway, just to have a nice day.
Absolutely.
Stirling Square Markets.
Mm-hmm.
There's also the Great Global Greyhound Walk, which is happening a couple of weeks later on Sunday the 29th.
That's right. That's the one that GAWA are organising this year. So, please get along and support them. And, let's try and beat a record.
And that's Piney Lakes Reserve from
That's right.
8 until 11:30. These are all like fun things to go to anyway.
Absolutely. Yep.
GAWA are also holding. I've been to many quiz nights.
Yeah, well, no.
You've been
I've been to a few with you.
You've been with me. Mel is my quiz night police person, really, because I enjoy a quiz night.
You do.
Mel.
Yes, you do. And the fun of them.
Because I enjoy saving the most beautiful creatures in the world. I enjoy hanging out with people who want to save beautiful creatures because they're just beautiful creatures themselves, but also they're just an enormous amount of fun.
They are, yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot of fun at a quiz night.
And GAWA are holding their quiz night at where?
That is at the Midland Town Hall. It's always a fun night, really good cause. We, Free the Hounds, will have a table there as well. Alan, our Vice President, our anchor, will be there.
Hi, Alan.
Hi, Al.
Alan's awesome.
He is. There'll be a stall there. You can purchase some merch. And also, of course, GAWA will have their things for sale.
And for those listeners who aren't as au fait with the greyhound terminology as we are, GAWA is a Greyhounds Adoptions WA, probably the preeminent rescue groups in WA who work tirelessly to rehome and support these beautiful creatures. Pretty much every event we've talked about, GAWA has a hand in, and we are going to talk to someone on this very podcast.
That's right.
Who's intimately involved with GAWA.
She is one of their strongest volleys, someone that never stops trying to help the greyhounds.
So that was the GAWA Quiz Night, Midland Town Hall, Saturday 19th of October, 6:30 p.m. Is there anything else going on, Mel, or is that the end of our intro?
Just please sign the petition. You can download it on our website, reach out to us on any social media platform and we can email it to you. If you don't have a printer at home, we're more than happy to get some copies of it to you. But we need those signatures if we are going to make change. And with the possibility of 5 seats or 6 seats in the upper house of the Greens coming in to the next parliament, we really do have a chance. If not to end it or to start phasing it out, to absolutely have changes made.
To ruffle some feathers.
Absolutely.
An election year is a very important year because that's when these pollies that get along with their normal business, ignoring us for 3 years, they start listening around election time, don't they?
That's right, yep.
And if you can make a loud enough noise, they might hear it.
Yep, That's right.
So help us make a noise.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Mel. As I said, we've got a very, very special guest today. We have someone who's a strong advocate in the field. Her name is Sophie, and she volunteers at GAWA, Greyhound Adoptions WA. She's been volunteering for 5 years, but she's also been a fosterer for 7 years, and she's here with us to talk about GAWA hounds and the current need for foster carers in WA. For those who want to know, we spoke to Tony Donnelly back in episode 4 about the rehoming crisis, and as far as we know, and Sophie can fill us in on this, it hasn't gotten any better.
No.
Actually, I think it's probably gotten worse. So I'd like to introduce Sophie to the podcast. Hey, how are you?
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for making time to be here. As I said, you've been working with GAWA for 5 years now.
Yes, that's right.
And the situation hasn't gotten better.
No, as you said, it's probably gotten a little bit worse. If anything, we always have ex-racing greyhounds who need to be fostered and adopted, but we have the added complications of the housing crisis and the financial crisis, I suppose, that a lot of people are experiencing in terms of cost of living. So not only have we got those ex-racing greyhounds coming out of the industry, but we have a lot of private surrenders coming to us as well.
That's interesting to me. I'd never thought of that part of it. I was pretty aware that the overbreeding and the industry was churning out dogs that needed homes. I hadn't realised on the other side of the equation the pool of adopters might be dropping or being affected.
Yeah, absolutely. So during COVID, we had lots of people put their hands up to foster or adopt a dog. And I think a lot of rescues and rehoming organisations across Australia probably experience similar things. But since people have gone back to work, they're travelling again, they might not have the same amount of time that they had before. They are unfortunately needing to surrender their dog, and also just fewer people are putting their hands up to take one in. And like I said, that's across all breeds, not just greyhounds, but we've got the added difficulty of the fact that we've just got this continuous supply.
Right. And you mentioned the word surrenders, and that's a big part of your work with GAWA. Can you tell us a bit more about what surrenders represents?
Yeah, sure. So probably a few years ago, the vast majority of our incoming dogs were direct from the racing industry. So trainers or greyhound racing owners who had retired their dog, they weren't racing them anymore, and they needed an organisation to support them in the rehoming process. There are 2 main rehoming organisations plus 1 or 2 smaller ones in WA, and Greyhound Adoptions WA is one of those larger organisations. So the vast majority of our dogs were coming directly from racing. Now I've found that in the last year or two, post-COVID, with the cost of living crisis and the housing crisis, we're seeing a larger proportion of our dogs as private surrenders. So that might be someone who has adopted a greyhound through another rehoming group. It might be somebody who's adopted their greyhound directly from a trainer or another racing participant. It could even be somebody who has a greyhound cross. Unfortunately, there are greyhound crosses out there, and also greyhounds occasionally who end up in the pound, and this is the kind of situation we're talking about. So regardless of where they've come from, and don't get me wrong, we also have dogs come back to us who have been rehomed through us, and we encourage anyone who's adopted a dog through us who cannot look after that dog anymore to contact us, and we will always take them back into foster and hopefully find them another forever home. But we get dogs from all sorts of scenarios.
Yeah.
Just on that, because I was formerly with GAWA as well, RAWA have also changed the rules around rehoming. So I think GAP wouldn't take them back previously. There was a lot that would come to us and a lot of reasons people would give to us why they wouldn't take them back. However, that has definitely changed when they got a second property. So they had more capacity to be able to take these dogs in of their own. And also trainers now, there was a new rule written into the rules of racing that trainers have to take their dogs back again now too. So whether or not that will have a impact. We don't know yet, obviously, but hopefully it will.
Thanks, Mel. And when you say RAWA, obviously you mean Racing and Wagering WA, which again, as we've spoken about in previous episodes, is a part of the government system, isn't it?
Yep.
Right. And maybe I'm pretty biased, but is it possible that when any group is under the umbrella of the government or the industry that wants to support that industry and keep it going, regardless whether it's GAP or RAWA, there may be some issues that come up with conflict of interest in terms of the regulations and rules?
Policies, and absolutely. And I think, though, too, that racing and wagering and the controlling bodies in general, they've had to try and change as people have become more aware of greyhounds, as advocates have gotten louder, as people have become more and more aware of issues that we didn't have 5 or 10 years ago because so many more dogs were being euthanized.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody's ever had this problem as bad as it is right now.
Right.
So it's always being sort of on the back foot, whereas it would have been better had racing and wagering planned and made sure that they were only breeding enough dogs that was sustainable to be rehomed without any dog having to be, put in a position where they're sort of just hanging out in kennels for years waiting for a home.
Yep. And I guess my thinking is that those who come into this space with the pure intention of supporting, rescuing, rehoming these beautiful creatures tend to have a more conscionable remit than, say, the remit that's given by a body that wants it to continue.
I can tell you that you wouldn't do this volunteer work for any reason other than you love greyhounds. There is nothing in it for us. We spend our own time, our own effort, our own money. We sacrifice family time, we sacrifice work time, we sacrifice social time to the cause. None of us are paid at Greyhound Adoptions WA, so we are 100% volunteer run. That means that our committee are volunteers. Our foster carers are volunteers.
Yep.
The people who provide behavioural advice, diet advice, transport dogs to and from the vet, we are all volunteers and none of us are paid. Most of us have families, jobs. So it really is something we do out of passion only.
Which stands in stark contrast, Sophie, to the fact that, as Mel has pointed out many times, this is, other than a very small percentage of people, this is a hobby sport. So in terms of the other side of the equation, their hobby gets funded by the government. And then we've got a bunch of people like you who are giving their time and energy for free to deal with the consequences of these people who get their hobby paid for. Mel?
The irony is just beyond most of us, I think. It doesn't make any sense. And this is what I think people need to understand better about what happens.
Yeah.
Because I just don't think anybody's got any idea.
Really?
We've got volunteers and committee members who spend more hours on rehoming greyhounds and getting them vet treatment and getting them healthy and getting them happy, more hours than a full-time job. It's simply because if they don't do it, nobody will. So we've got people well into their middle years, senior years, who are at markets battling the elements every weekend, flipping sausages to earn a few bucks at a Bunnings sausage sizzle, trying to support as many dogs as they can.
Yeah. Isn't that beautiful? And isn't it, as Mel said, ironic that these people are giving so much of their time, energy, when the people who are causing those people to give their time and energy get subsidised by my tax dollars? It's very odd. Moving on, what do you think is mostly needed in terms of being a foster carer?
Really, there's nothing more important than being a kind and patient person. We also do look for some practical qualities just in terms of your living situation, making sure that your property is suitable for a greyhound. That involves just checking if you've got stairs, where they're located, if you've got secure fencing, if you've got a pool, if there's fencing around that. Really, that's about it. In terms of the qualities of the foster carers, like I said, we just want somebody who is going to introduce their foster to love, comfort, living indoors, a bit of routine, just teaching them how to be a pet, really.
I was going to ask you about that, actually. We live in an apartment complex. It's a small apartment, and we've got, obviously, regular listeners will know, my beautiful princess Bunny and my gorgeous, gorgeous good boy Bo. I was walking him back into the complex just the other day, and one of the humans who live there said to me, "How the hell do you have these dogs in this little place?" And I said, "No, you'd be surprised." And she looked at me as like, that's not possible. They need lots of space and lots of exercise. Is that one of the common myths about greyhounds?
The name of the podcast says it all, really. They are couch potatoes.
Thank you for naming the podcast.
I can tell you I started my foster journey in 2017 in a small inner city apartment here in Northbridge, just down the road. My husband and I were working full time, and I've wanted a dog for years and years, but we were living over east and we weren't in a position to be able to have one. As soon as we relocated back to Perth and got this rental apartment, I made sure that it was a pet-friendly complex. And I thought, what kind of dog is going to be happy here? And automatically, greyhounds. So I reached out to Tony at Greyhound Adoptions WA.
Hi, Tony.
And I thought I'd really have to put my case forward. Like, we're in an apartment, we work full time, we haven't had a dog before. I mean, we'd had family dogs, but not together. And to my surprise, Tony asked me a few questions, made sure I wasn't, a total crazy person, although I think I'm a little bit crazy, and sent somebody around to do a property check. Lovely guy who is still a volunteer with Greyhound Adoptions WA. And he said the apartment's totally fine. And we got a foster dog a day or two later. And at times we had 2 foster dogs in that tiny little apartment, and it was totally perfect. We would take them for walks. We were surrounded by dog parks, so that was really, really lucky. And we had no issues whatsoever. We joked a few years later that we bought the house we're in now so that we could give our dogs a garden. They spent about 1 minute per day in that garden. Yeah. So that was a really great investment.
Yeah.
But as with all breeds, each greyhound is an individual and they're going to have their own personality and their own preferences. But the ones I've had have slept the day away and then just been really, really excited for their couple of walks a day,
Yep.
played with some toys. They are pretty low maintenance dogs, generally speaking. So if you're someone who thinks, oh, I'm in this apartment or townhouse, I couldn't have a dog, please have a conversation with us.
Yeah. Yeah, no, please do, because I was converted. I had the same. I've said this many times. The idea that greyhounds could be pets to me was just absurd. Even when Jem suggested getting Boboy, I was like, "Are you kidding me? 2 greyhounds?" It's like, no, they fit in perfectly. They absolutely fit in perfectly. There's no worries whatsoever. So yeah, if you've got a small apartment, give GAWA a buzz. By the way, GAWA, you can get them at Greyhound Adoptions WA. That's all one word, greyhoundadoptionswa.com.au. And the other thing they do, I just want you to speak a little bit to, Sophie. GAWA has a lot of wraparound and practical supports that you won't get elsewhere. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yes. So fostering a greyhound through Greyhound Adoptions WA is a pretty easy process, if you ask me. You get lots and lots of support, 24-hour a day, 7 days a week support, if that's what you need. We've got a big team of volunteers who are always available to chat on the phone. We can give you support via email. You can come and visit us at one of our events. We've got different people with expertise in different areas. So, like I said, diet, grooming, vet care, things like that. And it's also free. So if you love dogs, but you're just not sure about the financial commitment, fostering is a great way to start. I can't promise that you won't want to foster fail, which is what happened to me. But if you want to sort of try before you buy, or you want to be able to help a dog or two, but you just can't give that long-term commitment, we provide a collar, a lead, a muzzle, a gorgeous handmade coat in wintertime, and dry food. As long as it's been donated to us, we have some very generous supporters and brands who do give us excess dog food when they can. And we also cover all of the vet costs. So the only thing we ask foster carers to provide, if they are able to, is some dog roll or meat to supplement that dry food, just to keep things interesting. But if that's something that a foster carer isn't able to do, you know, they're welcome to have a chat with us. We even get lots of dog beds, dog toys and other accessories donated to us. So really we can kit a foster carer out with whatever they need.
It just blows my mind. Once again, I'm all for rescuing any breed. I do think dogs are lovely. But if you are someone who really wants to rescue, think about what you get through a group like GAWA. How many rescue dogs would you have a team around you that will support you in the ways that Sophie's just talking about? How many rescue breeds could you just say, look, this didn't work out, can I surrender them back? And they'll say, okay, and maybe offer you something. It's quite extraordinary, the lengths that we go to, and quite wonderful, isn't it?
Absolutely.
The other thing you get is community and friends. So some of my best friends, fellow foster carers, advocates and fellow adopters, and whether they're people who I have just approached in my neighbourhood and kind of forced to be my friend, people who I've found online. Some of our dogs have Instagrams, no judgment please. We meet up at walks, we celebrate dogs' birthdays, we look after each other's dogs when we go away. It is really beautiful.
You don't have to tell me that. Basically, before I met Mel and Jem, I used to sit in a basement playing Fortnite with a bottle of sherry next to me. I never left the house. Now I have friends. I do a podcast. I go to events. So yeah, if you're a sad, lonely, middle-aged man who needs a sense of community, adopt a greyhound.
Join the cult.
It's a great cult though, Mel. It's not like a cult that you can't leave. It's a cult that you don't want to leave.
Exactly, and that's a big difference.
That's a very big difference.
It is.
Thank you. I got one more for you, if that's all right, Sophie. Thank you for giving us so much of your time. I do want to know what happens, though. What happens if enough people don't reach out? What happens if there aren't enough foster homes?
Well, unfortunately, there aren't enough foster homes. So in WA, racing participants aren't allowed to euthanise their ex-racing greyhounds just because there's a surplus, just because there are too many of them. So they end up spending a lot of time in kennels, whether that's racing kennels or maybe a kennel facility like at GAP. What GAWA provides for these dogs is a home environment. So we don't have kennel facilities. We put these greyhounds straight into a home where they learn how to be a pet. They get that routine, that love, that warmth. So for the dogs who don't come into our foster program, they may spend months or longer in these kennels, you know, with kind of minimal human interaction usually, often minimal socialisation with other dogs, certainly with other breeds and other kinds of animals. So they're just not being set up for that pet life.
Right, because we spoke to someone on a previous episode, and I can't recall which one it was, Mel, but there was certain rules they have in terms of kenneling, how long they can get out of the kennel, and it's tiny, isn't it? Do you recall?
Yeah.
Is it like half an hour a day?
Well, it's actually, they can stay within a kennel for 23 3/4 hours a day. There's like only a 15-minute period that they have to come out
I can't
every single day.
I can't imagine my beautiful Bunster or my beautiful Bow Boy getting 15 to 20, half an hour outside. Once again, it blows my mind that these are the standards. And what you're saying with GAWA is that you're trying to avoid that, them having to live that life, and give them a life that is surrounded by loving people and couches.
Absolutely. They get to experience living inside, often on the couch, as you know. They come out to events, they go for walks, and they just get that diversity and that socialisation with people, with other dogs, with other animals sometimes, rides in the car, all those good things in life.
Yeah, I like rides in the car.
Especially if it ends up at a coffee shop or something like that.
And so just on that, you were saying about the length of time in kennels, that's the latest thing on the budget, and that's happening now within GAP, is a new Taj Mahal facility of kennels. There's about a place for 100 dogs and rehabilitation and more staff and everything. Do you think that's going to make any difference to the problem we have with rehoming?
No, I think it just shifts dogs from one kennel to another. So if a kennel for 100 dogs opened tomorrow, we could fill it up tomorrow.
Yeah.
And by we, I mean the industry, because there are more than 100 dogs waiting to come into GAWA's foster program. We can't take 100 dogs in at a time. We take as many as we can. We take as many as we have foster homes. And so it's a flow-on effect. The more dogs we adopt out, the more foster homes we free up. But with a kennel, if you've got 100 spots, you fill it up with 100 dogs, and then what? It doesn't mean that they're going to be adopted. It doesn't mean they're going to get a home. It means they've gone from a racing kennel to rehoming kennel. And what happens there, I don't know. Unfortunately, breeding the dogs is the issue, and maybe getting them over from the eastern states as well. We just have too many, and it doesn't matter what we do. We spend so much time trying to find adopters, foster carers. Unfortunately, there are just too many for us to handle, and some of our foster carers and volunteers have 3, 4, 5, 6 dogs at home, whether it's temporarily or on an ongoing basis, because we're just at crisis point, and we have been for a long time.
I sensed a bit of frustration in your voice then, Sophie, and I would imagine being at the centre of this issue and having to sort of manage this would bring up some sort of feelings of frustration. Would that be fair enough?
Yes, absolutely. It can be frustrating at times because we're just dealing with dogs from so many different angles. So we've got incoming dogs from the industry, incoming dogs from surrenders. We might get a call about a greyhound in a pound. Then we've got foster carers who might be going away or needing to go into hospital, and we've got to move their dog. So it never ends. And I know that some of our team probably don't sleep for half the night because they are up dealing with all these issues and just worrying about them as well. You can't switch off.
It sounds like what you're dealing with is the consequence of this industry. And Mel, you mentioned the giant big, what you call kennel system. That it sounds like the solutions are based on the consequence of this industry rather than attending to the source of the problem in the first place.
Yeah, it's just Band-Aids really.
Yeah, if we start attending to the source, which is the overbreeding, which is the multiple things we've talked about, then groups like you, Sophie, GAWA and Free the Hounds maybe won't have to continually mop up the consequences of this industry. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to have to wrap it up. I could talk for another hour, really. But before we go, I have a personal question to ask, because my little bow boy used to be known as Squirtle. And I'm wondering were you aware of Squirtle in your time with GAWA?
Yes, I remember Squirtle, and I had no idea.
Oh, didn't you?
No.
Yeah, that's my boy.
Oh, well, the dogs who come in with the most interesting names always stick in my memory. We often get repeat names come in. Think
Shadow.
Oh my goodness. Izzy, Jazz. We get a lot of dogs with the same name come in, but Squirtle.
Never got a Squirtle.
I only know of one Squirtle. There he is. He's
Gemma's
so beautiful.
Gemma's just showing us a photo of.
And
he's got the most ridiculously gorgeous face, hasn't he?
He sure does. And do you know what is amazing is that because we deal with so many dogs, I love them all and I care for them all, but I don't remember them all. We've got team members who remember dogs from years, like a decade ago. They go, oh, yeah, I know that dog.
Yeah.
Yep, they were fostered by this person and they were adopted out here and I think they still live over there.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
Yeah. But I think basically what you're saying is Bo was your favourite. That's what I'm hearing.
Third favourite after my two, obviously.
Which is also what I want to ask about. Yeah, can we give a shout out to your beautiful?
Absolutely.
Can we say hi? Are they listening? Do you think they'd be listening right now?
One would be and one wouldn't. So I've got my beautiful salty girl Shirley, who was a foster fail. She was our 4th foster and we just couldn't let her go. And then we've got our gorgeous Walt, who was originally adopted from GAP and then surrendered a couple of years later to GAWA. I heard about him through the grapevine, and I don't know what it was about him. I just knew I had to snap him up, and so he joined our family a couple of years after we adopted Shirley. And yeah, Shirley is a real character. She is just living her best life now and has us wrapped around her little toe. Walt is just a salt of the earth kind of guy. He follows us around the house. He snuggles. He has story time with my children. He's just so beautiful.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how if you've got a boy and a girl, one of them is like a salty little princess and the other one's just a happy little fella?
You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?
This has been wonderful. Thank you so much. Mel, did you have any other thoughts before we wrap it up?
Nope, that was great. Thank you so much, Soph.
Thank you. And please, just if you've ever thought about fostering a greyhound, check us out on our social media, have a look at our website, or come along to one of our weekend events, because we're at farmers markets or at pet shops every weekend.
The website is greyhoundadoptionswa.com.au. Just be a good person and go and say hello to them. As Sophie said earlier in the podcast, you don't rescue them, they rescue you. You don't save them, they save you.
Mel said that.
Doesn't matter. Someone said it.
No, leave that in. So, Sophie, thank you so much for your time. This was wonderful and enlightening and informative, which is what we try to be. I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
And adopt a third greyhound.
Yes, there's room.
That was quite informative, wasn't it, Mel?
It really was, but just such a shame that it hasn't gotten any better from a year ago.
Right.
That's, I think, the thing that I find really difficult. Yeah.
So thank you, Sophie. Thank you, Mel. Thank you, Jem, our producer. Thank you to the listeners. Please keep listening, because one day, as we educate and inform ourselves, as we educate and inform our brothers and sisters, the closer we shall get to eventually releasing the hounds.